Hello everyone, I am Becca, the conservative Filipina. Welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here. I hope you are doing well. Today I want to talk about the rise of plastic surgeries in the Philippines. If you are interested in this kind of topic, you want to hear more about it, please keep on watching. Plastic surgery is becoming common in the Philippines, with a growing number of Filipinos seeking procedures to enhance, or should I say alter, their appearance. Filipinos has always been obsessed with beauty, and in a vibrant and ever-evolving world of beauty, the Filipinos are one or some of the most passionate consumers of beauty products, from skincare to makeup, hair care to fragrance, and let's not forget the whitening products. I mean, you name it. Filipinos spend a lot of money on beauty products, and that is why, the beauty industry is booming in the Philippines. Nowadays, more Filipinos are going under the knife to achieve that ideal of beauty or the standard of beauty. So why is plastic surgery becoming more popular in the Philippines? There are several reasons why, but I'm going to go ahead and share with you, I think, the top 3 reasons why Filipinos get plastic surgeries. So the first one is the influence of media or social media. The influence of media and social media. A lot of Filipinos are on the internet, online, scrolling, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I mean, you name it. It's everywhere. And those who also like to watch TV, there's so many adverts. And even, while you're traveling or driving in the highway, you see this big, humongous billboards of people on them. Some of them have clothes, Basically, Filipinos are constantly bombarded with images of perceived beauty standards. This constant exposure can make people feel self-conscious about their own appearance and drive them to consider plastic surgery. So that's one of the main reasons. A lot of Filipinos are influenced by media and social media. So the second reason is affordability. Yes, it's actually more affordable to get a lot of these procedures in the Philippines. Compared to countries like the United States or Europe, plastic surgery procedures in the Philippines are often more budget-friendly. This makes it accessible to a wider range of people to get plastic surgery. And some people actually do save money for this because this is very important for them. Plus, many surgeons in the Philippines are highly skilled and trained, attracting medical tourists as well. Now, when it comes to this plastic surgery tourism, I think in Asia, the top countries are Thailand and South Korea. A lot of Filipinos, celebrities, influencers travel to South Korea to get their plastic surgery. There's that appeal because, while you are recuperating from the surgery, that process is not very pretty. Actually, it's very difficult and it can get quite ugly. So a lot of people wanna, take that time away from family and friends, and then when they go back home to their country, you're like a brand new looking person. So let's move on to the next one. The third reason why a lot of Filipinos are getting plastic surgeries. So the third one, I think it's very important to talk about it, is that there is a cultural aspect to this. This obsession is not merely a passing trend. It is deeply rooted in the country's culture. In the Filipino culture, there is a greater emphasis on physical appearance. The concept of pagandahan, or in English, I think it's called beautification, that is deeply ingrained in the Filipino society. That's why you notice that a lot of Filipinos are also obsessed with beauty pageants. There's so many beauty pageants, from Miss Philippines, Miss Earth, International, what else? Miss World, Miss Universe. Even in the smallest barangays, you always have beauty pageants every fiesta. During like these big celebrations, there's always beauty pageants, and Filipinos really tune into that because that's a part of the culture. Historically, beauty is tied with social status and prestige. That's why in the Philippines, even up to these days, there's still the preference for those who look mixed. Back in the days, a lot of people find those who have Spanish heritage to be beautiful. A lot of times they're much taller than the average Filipino. They have, the fair skin, not just white skin, but that they have that porcelain-like youthful looking skin that's much preferred in the country. And of course, those who have high nose bridge, a lot of Filipinos find that to be beautiful. They have this big eyes, the European, the westernized looking eyes. Those are what Filipinos find to be beautiful. So those people who look like that, they usually are celebrities. It's much easier for them to get into that business, the show business. So if you think about it, that's probably one of the reasons why Filipinos obsess with beauty, and even up to this days, it's still the same standards. But of course, you add more beauty trends to that, which we're going to talk about later in this video. So Filipinos are generally accepting of other people's looks, but there is always that desire to look beautiful, to look physically attractive. And for some people, that's, plain vanity. For some people, it's to improve themselves. For some people, it's personal satisfaction. But there's also that one other reason why Filipinos are obsessed with beauty is the fact that, a lot of people who are deemed to be physically attractive or beautiful, they do get ahead in life. From getting a job. Every time you see a job posting in the Philippines, a lot of them will always have this line that says, "We are looking for someone with pleasing personality." That's nothing to do with your personality or behavior or how you act. It's all about how you look. And if you are considered beautiful, you meet those Filipino beauty standards, you're much more likely to get that job, especially if this job requires you to do customer service. In fact, one big example of that is, those Filipinos who work in the airline industry, the flight attendants. There's a very strict requirement on that. As far as I know, if you want to become a flight attendant in the Philippines, especially with those big airline companies, if you're a woman, you have to be at least 5'4". You have to be slim. You have to be pretty. That's a part of the thing, getting into those jobs. A lot of people also do plastic surgeries or they enhance their looks because they want to get a promotion. I know it's like kind of vain, but that's the way it is. That's why a lot of Filipinos, for them, that's definitely a big motivator. Okay, some of the most common plastic surgery procedures in the Philippines are, the first one is, you probably guessed it right, rhinoplasty or nose jobs. A lot of Filipinos get nose jobs. This is arguably the most sought after procedure in the Philippines. Many Filipinos opt for rhinoplasty or the nose job to refine the shape of their nose. As you can see, I don't have a nose bridge. Not a lot, maybe a little bit. But a lot of Filipinos want to attain that higher nose or nasal bridge, I mean, for some, it's understandable because I have friends and schoolmates where they really don't have any bridge. If you wear glasses, it's kind of hard. Glasses keeps falling. That's why some you would see this, they would have this tie to kind of just keep that glasses, in place because, it will keep falling from their face. So it's understandable that some people will get the nose job, but a lot of people I see getting the nose job don't even really need it. But I guess, some people want to attain a certain look. That's why they get the nose job. Now, the second most common procedure is, I'm kind of surprised with this. I thought this was just in South Korea. I know that this is a big, not really just a trend. A lot of South Koreans get this apparently right before entering college. They get the eyelid surgery. Now, if you're not familiar with this, there is a medical terminology for it. I can't say it. I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm also going to show you what it looked like because as a Westerner, you're probably like, what is that? What is that about? So this is known as double eyelid surgery. This procedure creates a crease in the upper eyelid, making the eyes appear larger and more expressive. It's really common among those who want to achieve a more westernized look. So some people say, well, they want to look more awake. Because for those Asians with slanted eyes, some of them really have small eyes. So especially the women, they want to have a little bit more room, that crease to put their makeup on. So that's one reason. So the next most common plastic surgery procedure in the Philippines is breast augmentation. A lot of women are opting to enhance their breast size. And I heard that some women do this because they want to look more feminine, more sexy. And I've also heard a couple of people talking about this. They ended up getting, the breast augmentation because their partners wanted them to do so. In fact, I saw a very popular YouTuber, American, I think it's American and Filipino couple who kind of share their journey of her getting this surgery. So some women do this because they want to look more feminine, more sexy, and some do this for their partners. So it's becoming more common in the Philippines, breast augmentation. So the next one is liposuction. Now, liposuction's been a thing in the Philippines, like even from, 10, 15 years ago. I've seen a lot of, I've heard a lot of celebrities, of course, do liposuction. Even people who can't afford it, they save the money to get the liposuction. But back in the days, most people that get this focus on the midsection. They want to remove the fat in that, in the tummy, belly area. But nowadays, apparently the trend is a lot more Filipinos are get liposuction on their arms and thighs. So that's a thing. All right, so the last most common plastic surgery procedure in the Philippines is facelifts. Yes, some Filipinos get facelifts, but I think nowadays a lot of Filipinos get dermal fillers. That way you call it. Botox also is very popular. Now I see this. I've seen this. What do you call that? This trend of a lot of Filipinos are getting fillers for their lips to plump the lips, to make the lips look larger. Who made that popular? One of the Kardashians, I think. Honestly, this is my personal opinion, obviously, but I don't think the Filipina face, especially those with smaller facial structure, look very good with those very plump, big lips. It just doesn't go well together. It doesn't look balanced. It looks, yeah, I see a lot of celebrities and influencers, even vloggers doing this, and I'm just like, it looks kind of weird. It looks very imbalanced because of the small facial structure, and then the lips are so big. There's also this trend of Filipinas wanting to look Latina. That's a trend in the Philippines. Like, a lot of them wants to look Latina. Now, yes, I do think that Latinas are beautiful, but that's their natural look. I think Filipinas have their own natural look. It's just, I don't really get why they want to look Latina. If you're a mix, you have a Spanish heritage, it makes sense, but there are some who like completely change their, some of the parts of their face, especially the lips, the eyes, and the nose, because they want to look that look, the Latina look. Well, to each their own, I guess. All right, so let's move on to the next part of this conversation. So what do I think of plastic surgery? Plastic surgery is a personal choice, and people do it for different reasons. And I think, in my opinion, the most common reason why people do plastic surgery is there's that desire to be beautiful. I think everybody wants to be beautiful, but ultimately there's that desire to be wanted by others. So I think there's definitely a psychological aspect to plastic surgery. Plastic surgery can have a significant impact on someone's psychological well-being. For some people, it can boost their self-esteem and improve their quality of life. However, for others, I've seen a couple of cases on this, even on Rafi Tulfo's channel. I watch a lot of his content. Some people ended up getting disappointed and even went into depression. Actually, recently, there was a video of a Filipina who got her nose done. She got rhinoplasty, and she ended up getting botched or disfigured. And now she's not just disappointed, she's depressed, and she's hiding her nose, her face. So instead of getting that self-confidence, she ended up, she's botched, she's disfigured now. So yeah, it's a very sad thing to happen, but it's happened to a lot of Filipinos, even those who, there's also that risk of getting scammed. And, some people have this quack doctors visiting their house, giving them fillers, whether that's the face to, remove wrinkles, or the lips. I mean, there's a lot of cases like this where people ended up getting disfigured. So I think it's very important to have a healthy self-image and realistic expectations before undergoing surgery. And for me personally, I think there's also a spiritual aspect to this. And I'm going to quote the Bible on this one. I'm going to put it on the screen. In the book of Psalms, chapter 139, verse 14. It says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. The praise fearfully made signifies that each person is created with great care and attention by God. It emphasizes the uniqueness and dignity of every individual, reflecting the awe-inspiring truth that humanity is the handiwork of a wise and loving Creator. The term fearfully always conveys a sense of respect and reverence for God's creation, highlighting the sanctity of human life. Overall, it calls individuals to recognize their purpose and the divine nature of their existence. And I also want to mention the ethical debate on this, on plastic surgery. Now, at least in the Asian culture, a lot of Asians, not just Filipinos, but Asians, are very, thankful for that, the physical attributes they inherited from their parents. And a lot of people talked about this. Actually, I saw a show talking about this. The hosts were asking the participants, are you okay with losing all of those, those natural attributes given or passed down to you by your parents? Because of course, if you get plastic surgery, you change your nose, you may have inherited that nose from your dad, like myself. Are you okay with losing that attribute, looking a little bit different from your family? So there's that question. For some people, that's really not a question, but for some, especially those who, want to look like they're related to their family, you're going to lose those attributes. So that's another thing to talk about in a different conversation. So why am I talking about this topic? I wanted to talk about this topic because I want to encourage Filipinas to embrace their natural beauty. As social media becomes a big part of our lives, I think there's that big influence, that big push to look, should I say, a big pressure. There's more pressure to look a certain ways. That's why I'm realizing that a lot of people do this, not just plastic surgeries, but enhancements in general, because there's that trend. In the US, for example, there's so many trends. A lot of people follow the Kardashians, and one big trend that I was kind of shocked to hear that even Filipinos are doing this is the BBL trend. Now, I find this to be dangerous because a lot of Americans who have gotten this procedure actually came out and warned others of the risk and complications of getting a BBL. The amount of pain you have to go through, and actually there were cases of women losing their lives while on the table getting that surgery done, and even after, because it's a complicated procedure. But that's why when I heard like a couple of Filipinos doing this, I was like, wow, I didn't think that was, first of all, I didn't think that was like a desired look in the Philippines. I just thought that was a little bit different. But unfortunately, I think a lot of Filipinos, even a lot of people, follow these trends blindly, and some of these trends, they may be considered attractive now, but a decade later they're not beautiful anymore. Like BBL, for example, I think that trend is phasing out, and those who have gotten it has really regretted it. I can't talk anymore. Also, this concept of, I want Filipinas to really appreciate that natural beauty, because there's something very unique about the Filipino look. That's why I was a little bit taken aback when I hear that it's a trend to want to look Latina. Yes, I understand Latinas are beautiful. That is their natural beauty. But I think Filipinas have their own charm. I think Filipinas gotta embrace that. And you know what? Growing up, there's always little comments, because again, this thing is ingrained in the Filipino society. People will always say, you know what, you'll probably look better if your nose is a little bit higher, your nose bridge, if your skin's a little whiter, if your hair is a little bit more straighter. There's always something that people will comment about. So a lot of Filipinos realize that some of those features that were not considered beautiful in the Philippines are considered beautiful in the other side of the world. Filipinos who migrate to the West, specifically the United States, they realize that, wow, some of these features that I thought were ugly are considered pretty here in the US. For example, your skin color. Americans would literally lay in the beach, to burn their skin to get that, tan skin color. Back in the days, a lot of Filipinos wear those big hats, the visor hats, we call it, to cover themselves because they don't want to get darker. It's the opposite in the other side of the world. Your small little nose, someone might find that attractive somewhere else. My husband thinks my nose is cute, so I was like, okay, that's nice. Your eyes, slanted eyes, I think is very attractive. Nowadays people are realizing that some of these things that maybe their own race don't find to be attractive, it's actually physically attractive somewhere else. So you are who you are because of those little details. This is something that I learned from my dad. Growing up, I've always been kind of self-conscious of my jawline. It's not as bad now because when I came here, I got my wisdom teeth removed, all four of them, and I've noticed that it kind of shrunk the size of my panga, we call that in the Philippines. That's not considered attractive in the Philippines. If you have this strong jawline, for women specifically, not for men. Men, that's okay. But for women, there's always this like preference for those with like rounded, more, even in South Korea, the B-shaped type of face. The smaller the face, the prettier you are. So I've always been kind of self-conscious of that. But my dad said, you know what? You're pretty because that's who you are, you know? If you remove that, you're going to look a little bit different from us. Hence the ethical part of this. And he's also mentioned that you are who you are because of those little details. So even from childhood, from a young age, I've learned to like love myself because of, you know, my father's, you know, words. That was very important to me. So I think before getting these plastic surgeries, it's very important to ask yourself these questions. Why are you getting the surgery? Who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for yourself, for your personal satisfaction, or you're doing it for someone else? Because what if that person becomes like not part of your life anymore? Let's say you have a boyfriend who wants you to do this and that. What if you break up? So what? Like, you did that for what? You know, it's important to ask this question. How will this impact your life? And of course, the important question, is it really necessary? Because there's a lot of things you can do to enhance your looks. Now, I am not against, you know, enhancements. I think it's very important to take care of yourself. I think it's good to look presentable in front of others, you know, taking care of yourself, having a healthy lifestyle, wearing a little bit of lipstick, eyebrows. I mean, some people don't have brows. And, you know, you got to do those brows. You know, there's two, at least for me, there's two things that's important: your brows and your lipstick. That's it. It's important to look presentable in front of others. And as we age, it's also good to recognize that you got to do some maintenance. It's important, you know. But a lot of these things you can do from home. Now, going under the knife, that's a different story. You know, everybody got to decide that for themselves. It is a personal choice, to each their own. Everybody, you know, have to make that decision for themselves. And it looks like more Filipinos have decided it is necessary for them to get these surgeries. And that's one reason why there is a rise of plastic surgery procedures in the Philippines. I am going to end this video here. If you like this topic and you have enjoyed it, please give me a like, and if you want to leave a comment, you are more than welcome to do that in my comment section below. I'll see you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.